back to my channel. My name is Ida, and today I'm going to do a November wrap-up with all the books that I read in November. These are a few of them. I also had a few library books that I don't have anymore, but let's just get into it because I think I have like 11 or 12 books here. So yeah, let's jump straight into it. So normally for November, I really enjoy reading dark academia books and fantasy books and stuff like that in general, just like some sort of creepy books. But this year I decided to reread my favorite series. I think I talked about it in my October TBR, and then I never got to read the books. But those are, of course, The Raven Cycle. And I read all 4 books this November. Just started from the beginning. So I started out with The Raven Boys, and then I read The Dream Thieves, and then I read Blue Lily Lily Blue, and then I read The Raven King. And this time I annotated them, which was really, really fun. This was my 3rd reread of the series. I think I read them the first time back in, maybe it was 2017 or something, maybe even before that. And then I reread them a few years ago, but I was too scared to annotate them. So I just wrote like small notes for myself on my phone. And my phone broke, so I didn't have any of the notes left. So this time around, I knew I had to annotate them. And I know it doesn't seem like a lot of tabs, but that's just because I have been annotating with pens a lot in these books. Like there were certain chapters that I just wanted to annotate the entire thing. These books are so good. I have rated them 5 stars, all of them, every single time. There might be a few of them that I like more than others, but like they're all 5-star reads. So there's maybe 2 of them are like 6 stars, if that's the thing. But yeah, I had so much fun rereading them. This has kind of been the year of me rereading my favorite books. And if you haven't done it before, I can highly recommend it. So I had a hard time describing these books in my last video. Now that I've reread them, I'm not sure I'll be able to actually make a better description of them. I think the best way to describe it is like the first book, for instance, The Raven Boys. The tagline is, if you kiss your true love, he will die. And then you kind of think, okay, this is like a YA book, very heavy on the romance and like maybe a little dramatic. But I would say the romance is maybe like the smallest part of these books overall. Like these are not love stories, at least not love stories between 2 characters. It's more so like love stories between friends, I think, because these books are so much more focused on friendship. And I think that's why I really enjoy them. But what I can say is that they are, I think I would define them as low fantasy, and they're YA. There's a little love story on the side, but mostly it's about this group of students, and they are on the lookout for a Welsh king that has been buried, they think, on the ley lines in their area. And the like the leader of their group, Gansey, he is obsessed with this king, and he really wants to find him. Gansey is very obsessed with this king. The rest of the gang, they're just following along because they really like Gansey, I think. And then a lot of things happens on the way, and there are just so many great characters in these books. I think the final one might be my favorite, and that might just be because I really enjoy especially 3 of the characters, and they're in this book a lot. And also we're introduced to a new character in this one, and he's like one of my favorites. So I just highly recommend this series, especially if you're on the lookout for a book that isn't like anything else you've ever read, and if you like really unique and atmospheric writing styles, because Maggie Stiefvater, she just writes amazingly. That's why I've been annotating so much. She just has such a way with words, a way of creating characters that don't feel like anyone else you've read about before. So yeah, can only recommend these books. I'm so happy that I reread them. I think I'm going to reread them again later on. Probably, who's to say. I actually forgot, the very first book I read in November was a graphic novel called Pumpkinheads, and it's about this boy and girl who have their final year working at a pumpkin amusement park, sort of. So they have like all these really autumnal things for like snacks and drinks and pumpkin patches and games and hay rides and all these kind of things. And it's their final summer together working here before they go off to college. And the male character, he's had this crush on one of the girls who works there, but he has never really talked to her. So his friend will help him finally talk to her, and they are just running around this entire amusement park trying to find her all night. And it was really, really sweet. I absolutely loved the drawing style, and it was just so autumnal. Like if that was an actual place, I would for sure visit it. I really, really enjoyed it. It's definitely the most autumnal graphic novel I've ever read, so I really recommend it if you like those kind of vibes. And then I read maybe one of my most anticipated books of this year, especially for this autumn, and that is Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews. And like, if you look at this cover, just in general, and especially the backside, it's just absolutely stunning. I love it so much. And it's here in the back, it says, Thomas had no idea that Andrew would do anything for him. Protect him, lie for him, kill for him. I have no idea what I think or like how to feel anymore. This book definitely got under my skin, and I read it in like 24 hours, I think, because it was just so eerie, and I just really wanted to know what was happening. And there were some twists and turns that I definitely didn't see coming. I saw this one recommended for people who really like Adam and Ronan from this book series. I can see why people would say that. I still think it's like a very different vibe. Like the vibe in these books is very different. This is a lot darker, also a lot darker than I thought it was going to be. I would say it's a YA body horror love story, if that's a thing. It's about these two boys, and they go to this boarding school. They're called Andrew and Thomas. Andrew is very dependent on Thomas because Andrew is like very anxious and he needs like the support. But Thomas is starting to withdraw, and Andrew doesn't know what is happening. And then one day he finds out what Thomas is doing every night, and I can't say too much because that would be a spoiler, but he joins him and they have to fight off these monsters. And I really can't say too much because that would spoil a lot of it. When I finished this book and I read the very final page, I was just staring into a wall for a while. Like, I still don't understand what happened at the end. If you struggle with open endings, this might not be the book for you, but if you want to read about obsessive boys and creepy woods and monsters and I think like mental health derailing, then I highly recommend this one. The next book I read was The Last Tale of the Flower Bride, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the author's name because I'm going to butcher it for sure. This is a gothic novel about marriage. That's kind of what one of the taglines is, at least. I wouldn't say it's about marriage as much as it is about obsession and manipulation and also friendship, actually. And it's told from two different points of view and at two different times in history as well. So we have the point of view from the husband who's married this woman, and then from this woman's old childhood friend. And that made it really interesting because the husband is trying to figure out what happened to this friend, and we are getting the story from the friend as it is happening. I was definitely creeped out, and I didn't see the plot twist at all. So that also blew my mind. It's written really beautifully. The language of the book is very poetic and very detailed, so it was so easy to picture the house where a lot of the story takes place, and also like the characters. It was just a lot of detail to the book, and I really enjoyed it. I read Mexican Gothic like a year ago, and I think The Last Tale of the Flower Bride had what I was missing from Mexican Gothic, so I really enjoyed this one. So if you like shorter stories and stories with a very dreamlike vibe to them, then I highly recommend this one. Then I actually have a few middle grade books, and the first one was Moonchild and the Secret of the Pinecone. This was one of the books I got from the Danish Book Convention in the beginning of the month, and I felt like this would be the perfect read to read during November because it takes place in the woods, and it's actually around this time of the year, so I'm so happy that I picked it up now. It's written by a Danish author, and she's written this book both in Danish and in English. I picked up the English copy, and I'm really glad that I did. It was also a lot of fun to read a story in English, but it was taking place in Denmark. And it's about Clara, who has a very, I would say, narcissistic dad who doesn't pay her any attention. And then she kind of runs away from him, and she stumbles upon this entirely different world in the forests where she normally goes to clear her head. And she meets a lot of different characters, not all that she can trust, and she kind of has to learn that along the way. She sees a lot of different places in this new world, and this is the first book of 7, so there's definitely a lot of things to be explored in the upcoming books, and I'm very excited about that. Because even though this book is written for, I think they say 8 to 12-year-olds, I had a lot of fun reading it, and it was just so cozy to read this while drinking peppermint tea and listening to like jazz music. I feel like that was the perfect vibe for it. I would say one of the main themes is found family, and also it's a very diverse cast in this book, and I really enjoyed how she handled like their differences and how everyone in this world appreciated each other even when they didn't see eye to eye. I thought that was like a very beautiful way to approach this, and I think it's a wonderful perspective to give to kids as well. So I will definitely be picking up the next one as well. Then I have another middle grade book, and that is Truly Madly Sheeply. This is the fourth book in a series, and that might have been why I was very confused throughout a lot of this book. Like, first of all, the cover is so autumnal. That is what drew me in. And then it's a cozy murder mystery, but for middle grade. And again, like, I'm not too good with very scary books, so middle grade horror books are way more my style. This was less horror and more mystery, like, no, there was no murder. I think I was just confused because the family we follow, or the girl we follow, Truly, she has moved from Texas to a little town in New Hampshire with her family, and you follow her adventures from the first book onwards until this one, which is the final one in the series. So I didn't know who any of the characters were, so I feel like I missed out on a lot of things, but there were a lot of autumnal good things too in this, and like the vibes were definitely there. Also, I've been to New Hampshire before during autumn, and I think about it every single autumn. It's just the perfect place to be. So I think the setting was amazing, and it was really nice to read about a big family. And it's about this girl who lives in New Hampshire, and her aunt and uncle, they buy a farm and they want to be sheep farmers. But then they go on their honeymoon, and Truly and her grandparents, they are looking after the farm, but then weird things start to happen, things happening inside their house. They're kind of being threatened to sell the farm, and they're trying to figure out who's causing havoc here at the barn, but also in the city, because pumpkins have started to disappear and they're being stolen. So they're kind of like two mysteries they have to solve all in one. The next book I read was Vulnerable Awakening, and this was also from the book convention. I picked it up from there. This is a romance book, but it also deals with very heavy subjects. So Olivia gets a job as a nanny for this family on the Upper East Side, and she becomes very close with the daughter of the family and also the father. Unfortunately, he has lost his wife a year prior to this book, so he's a widow, and Olivia kind of brings joy into their life again. But Olivia has a very dark past, and a lot of horrible things have happened to her, and they unfortunately come back around, and she has to deal with them again. But now she's older, so she has a better way to deal with all the issues that are still like haunting her from her past. It was really interesting to read this book, and I just in general really enjoy books set in New York. I think the setting is perfect, and after I've been there, I enjoy reading them even more. I will say this is really heavy, like there should be a lot of trigger warnings for this one, because some of the topics are super, super heavy. And when you think about how small this book is, you can kind of imagine, I think, how intense it gets at sometimes. But luckily it has a happy ending, and I enjoyed it. It was heavier than what I'm normally used to. I'm very much a rom-com or Emily Henry kind of romance girl. So this was definitely heavier, but I'm very glad I picked it up. And then I'm cheating a little bit because I haven't quite finished this one. I'm missing like, I think 40 pages. But this is the third book in the Evelyn Jones series. This one is called The Vanishing of Evelyn Jones. And I think this might be my favorite, actually. I almost finished it all in one sitting yesterday, and I am planning on finishing it right after I record this. It is so good. It's so eerie. It's so creepy. Again, it's a middle grade book, and it's more of a paranormal storyline, which I really enjoy. These are just perfect for me because they are scary, but not too scary. I definitely had to lift my feet off the ground when I was reading it last night, and I couldn't stop reading it because I wanted to know what is happening. So if you're looking for a middle grade book, or a book that's just not too scary, I highly recommend this series, and there's such a quick read as well. You can read this in a day. So I'm excited to finish this one, but I'm counting it as a November read. So these are the books so far that I've read in November. There's still a couple of days left. I am recording this a few days before December because I'll be traveling. So I'm cheating a little bit by adding maybe 2 other books that I think I will be reading in November. The first one is a book I mentioned in my last video, so my Kindle video, and that is Kindling, because I feel like that book is so autumn coded that I have to read it now and not in December. So I think I'm going to read that, also because I read very quickly on my Kindle. So I definitely think I'll be able to finish that before leaving. And then if I manage to, I'm gonna read this one as well, and it's a Christmas book, as you might be able to tell from the cover. Also a book I got from the Danish Book Convention. This one is called Sweet Christmas Temptations. And I just figured, since Christmas is only 1 month, I might as well start reading Christmas books a little before December. I am really excited about this one. It's also going to be my first Christmas read of the year. So I really hope it's going to be a good one and a good start to the season. So yeah, I'm cheating a little bit with the last 2 books, but I do think I'll have time to finish both of them before November is ending. And then I'll jump straight into the Christmas books from December. Since I will be traveling in December, I won't be posting a video in the beginning of the month, but I will definitely be doing a wrap up by the end of the year and also talk about my favorite books of the year and maybe also my biggest disappointments. I think that will be all. I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know what your favorite read of November was, and also if you're as excited about Christmas as I am. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!